Yeah, it's time to plant some flags, have some takes, create some false confidence, be willing to adjust, and prepare for the man versus machine wars that are soon to come on the horizon.
Oh, for sure. On today's show, we're going to discuss Silva's initial top 150 rankings in the context of where does he differ most from the market? In other words, what players is Evan taking a stand on right now? I want to be clear. Evan's rankings are aimed at season-long players for season-long drafts. Right now, because the best ADP we have is best ball, we're comparing it to ADP from underdog best ball. So that's part of the discrepancy that you'll see here. But a lot of these are just player takes that Evan has that are different than the market. And I find them interesting, and I'm interested and excited to debate them here. Let's start with the running back position with Chase Brown. Chase Brown ADP on underdog is running back 11. Silva has Chase Brown as his running back 5, fifth overall running back. And Silva has Chase Brown 13th overall player ahead of Achan, ahead of CMC, ahead of Brock Bowers, etc. Now, I love Chase Brown. We're actually ahead of Chase Brown in our rankings versus market also. Silva has taken it a step further, all the way up on Chase Brown. Evan, go ahead on why you think you're so much higher than market here on Chase Brown.
I do these. This is generally a rough draft. My mate's top 150 is generally a rough draft, and I haven't even really looked at ADP very much. So I don't have a great explanation for why the market is so much lower on Chase Brown than I am. But to me, he's a fringe first round pick. Over his last 8 games last year, he averaged 23.6 touches per game for over 116 total yards per game and almost a touchdown per game. He showed that he could handle a workhorse workload in college at Illinois and last season. The Bengals did very, very, very little to upgrade their backfield. And I think this is going to be one of the highest scoring offense in the league. Actually, the Bengals this year are my pick to lead the NFL in scoring. And I think that they're going to have to. They're installing a new defense. Their talent defensively isn't very impressive. I don't think they had a very good offseason. Their draft, I gave their draft one of the lowest grades. And I love Bengals this year. I have Joe Burrow as a top 5 quarterback. I've got Chase Brown as a top 5 running back. And to me, I don't know, he checks almost every single box. I guess you could say he's not a truly elite talent, but he has shown a skill that is great in fantasy, and that's the ability to catch the ball and handle a large workload and plays in a great offense. So Chase Brown, my chips are in on Chase Brown.
I mean, not only a great offense, but their defense is going to be bad again. And you saw these crazy shootouts that they got in, and Chase Brown showed an ability to stay on the field when they were down, when they were in shootouts and catch 5, 8 balls in a game. I think the concern is that they brought Samaje Perine back who can play on pass downs. Chase Brown did not actually start going off in terms of usage until Zach Moss went down last year. Zach Moss is now back. They drafted Taj Brooks, whatever. We can throw that away. But I do think that the Bengals will want to mix in Zach Moss and Perine more than they mixed in backups down the stretch last year, if you follow what I'm saying, Evan. So I'm higher than market on Chase Brown. I'm just not as high as Evan is here at RB5, I guess would be what I would say. Let's go to Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's ADP is the running back 26. Silva is up at RB20 on Tony Pollard, 51 overall. Go ahead on Tone P, Evan.
Yeah, last year the rhetoric in the offseason was that Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears were going to share the workload. But if you really looked into Brian Callahan's comments when he was talking about that, he really allowed for one of the running backs to step forward and take charge of the backfield, and that's what Tony Pollard did. I think that Tony Pollard is really good, and I think the Titans are going to be better than they were last year. And he has shown, Tony Pollard, ever since he recovered from that fractured fibula / ankle a couple years ago, like he has been an explosive player. He can play in the passing game. I think that the outlook, I kind of like what the Titans have done with their offensive line. I think that Cam Ward is absolutely going to be an upgrade on Will Levis. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable being ahead of market on Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I was impressed with the way Tony Pollard played last season in a bad environment, bad team, bad quarterback play, just bad everything. And the narrative out there, Evan, is that in 2023, Pollard struggled on the Cowboys when everybody was on him due to that broken leg that he was coming back from. And once he finally
You
got
remember
back,
down the stretch that season, though, he played really well.
he did play well. Then he goes into free agency and the Titans give him a bunch of money, and then he plays really well last season. So, I like Tony Pollard. I have worries about the team's success overall, but yeah, I know there's been some quotes recently about them wanting to be more even. When the chips are down, I agree with Evan. It's going to be Tony Pollard over Tajee Spears for the Titans.
So we are approaching this show from the standpoint of that we're talking about positional rankings.
Yeah.
In the past, oftentimes we have talked about just overall rankings, where I'm at, someone in regard to the top 150 versus where they are, versus where the market is. One guy I wanted to point out, because before we get too far down the running back list, is I have Jahmyr Gibbs as the number 3 overall player.
Yeah.
I'm in line. I believe he is the RB3 in terms of consensus ranking,
Yes.
but he's more of like a mid to late first round pick. Whereas I have him right behind Saquon. I have Saquon number 1, Bijan number 2, and Jahmyr Gibbs number 3. And then we get into the first tier of wide receivers. But I wanted to note that because I think that if the Lions are going to make any adjustments offensively, losing Ben Johnson, one of them that would be clear that could potentially happen would be to shift more away from David Montgomery and onto Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has 50 plus catches in back-to-back seasons. He scored 20 touchdowns last year. Now, David Montgomery was hurt for a chunk of the year, but I think that they could shift more onto his plate. Also, the Lions have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL this year. Who's going to play more if they're playing from behind more? That's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh, yeah.
So I have Jahmyr Gibbs in that clear-cut first tier of running backs, the 3rd overall player, right behind Saquon and Bijan.
And structurally, when we get to the home league strategy, a lot of times you can get better wide receiver values later in home leagues than you can in best ball, and that makes me take running backs earlier in home leagues than I do in best ball. But we'll get to all that when it comes peak drafting season in July and August. All right. 3rd running back Silva is off market on is Isaiah Pacheco. ADP is RB31. Silva is at RB22 on Mr. Pacheco. This is one I kind of disagree with. I'm interested to hear Evan's take on why higher than market on Pacheco.
Well, I think that the Chiefs wanted to use him pretty heavily last year, and obviously they were unable to. He broke his leg in week 2. And when he came back, he was not the same. The Chiefs, that was clear. I mean, Kareem Hunt wound up being the main back down the stretch and in the playoffs. I think that we're going to get a fully recovered Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt is a year older. The only somewhat significant addition that they made at running back was Elijah Mitchell, acquiring him from San Francisco. I just think that they're going to go back to Pacheco being the guy that they wanted him to be to open last season. People were very, very high on him last year. He gets hurt. He disappoints. He doesn't look the same when he comes back. He's going to be almost a full year removed. He'll be a full year removed from the injury in week 2.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of recovery time. Betting on this offense, the offensive line looks as strong as it's been in years. The supporting cast for Patrick Mahomes looks the strongest it's been in years. Offense to bet on. I think that Isaiah Pacheco will resume being the Chiefs' clear-cut lead back this year. That's a bet I'm willing to make.
So I was in on Pacheco last year. The injury is one that scares me. And I'm interested in talking to Stefania Bell about this. But these guys who have had broken legs, it's taken a long time for them to come back and get right. So I agree with you. He has a full year. Is that enough for him to come back and get right? We also have questions about A, how good he is, and B, Chiefs' throw rate in the red zone has always been high. It could really spike this year with Worthy, Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, Kelsey, Noah Gray, all there. So I'm like a little bit lukewarm at best on Pacheco, maybe because I got burned last year a little bit. But yeah, I'm worried about systemic issues and the injury, but we'll see how he looks come
So
August.
these are the RBs I have right behind him. Tell me who you would like, who you would prefer over Isaiah Pacheco. Kenneth Walker,
Yes.
DeAndre Swift,
Probably right now, unless they add someone.
Aaron Jones,
Probably right now.
David Montgomery,
Oh, yeah. He's going to score touchdowns for sure.
Dang. Okay.
We shall
We'll
see.
see.
All right. That'll be a good one for man versus machine as well, as it's going to be
That
hard to
will be
get
a
there
good one.
on Pacheco from a projection standpoint. All right. Fourth running back to talk about is the Patriot situation. Travion Henderson, ADP is RB21. Silva is down at RB29. Silva is also higher than market on Ramondre Stevenson, 93 overall here on Ramondre. You can usually get him around 130 or so in best ball right now. So basically, Silva, you have the gap between Travion and Ramondre tighter than the market does right now. How do you see this Patriots backfield playing out this season?
Ramondre Stevenson at 130 overall. I mean,
Roughly.
that's like you look at my 150, that's clear cut backup running back territory.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see that. Number one, my take on the Patriots is that they're going to be a lot better this year. I think that they could actually have a winning record in the first year of Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel actually today, before we started recording this show, came out and said that Ramondre Stevenson is absolutely going to be a big part of the operation. I love Travion Henderson, but he's a complimentary back, and he was a complimentary back in college, and he's a home run hitter. He's going to be really exciting for them. He's going to make big plays for them, but he is not a carry the workload back. And I think that the Patriots, with their improvement, they will have games where they play with a lead, and that will be Ramondre Stevenson's time. I think that he will get the ball at the goal line. He's competent in the receiving game. I mean, I think that Travion Henderson can end up with more yards than Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson can end up with more touches than Travion Henderson. I think that both of these guys are going to be heavily involved. 130 overall. Wow, that's like handcuff territory.
Well, yeah, and these are the differences between best ball and season long ranks. In other words, like the RB2s are worth a little bit less here in best ball because we can't just like move on from them. I will note, I don't know if you saw this, Evan, I tweeted about it. There was a report, I believe it was from Mike Reese, that the Patriots had multiple offers to trade away the number 38 overall pick, decide to stay there and take Travion Henderson, which I thought was pretty good sign for Travion Henderson. And we can say, yeah, he's a satellite back. He's not a workhorse back. 38th overall pick and turning down trade offers for that pick for a satellite back, that would surprise me a little bit. So I like being in on Travion Henderson, maybe a little bit more than Silva does. But in terms of overall rank, I think Silva has it right around where I would have it. He's at 69 overall here on Travion. But yeah, did you see that report from Mike Reese? Evan, any thoughts on Patriots declining to trade out?
I did. I don't know. I also saw all the, what do they call them, quote tweets. I don't know. I haven't quote tweeted in years, but the quote tweets like of all the speculation, like, oh, the Bears were obviously trying to get up for Travion Henderson. I mean, I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, explosive plays have become the name of the game for offensive and defensive coordinators around the NFL, and Travion Henderson is an explosive play threat. So I'm not surprised that teams would be excited that they would want to go get him.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just a lot of draft capital for the Patriots to use, I think, and a good sign that they rebuffed trade offers also on Travion. All right. Here's one where it's reversed, Evan. I couldn't believe this one. Well, maybe I should believe it. The last running back we're going to talk about that Evan is off market on is Bashal Tutin. Bashal Tutin's ADP on Underdog right now is the running back 37, which I thought was really high for a fourth round rookie. Then Evan comes in smoking hot. I mean, I can't even touch it. It's so hot. Bashal Tutin, RB32, 88th overall. You're aware, Evan, that Travis Etienne has not been traded. Tank Bigsby is still there, and this kid was a fourth round pick. Evan, go ahead on Bashal Tutin.
Well, yeah, we're not waiting around for Travis Etienne to get traded. I mean, we're already going to have him on our teams by the time because we're ahead of market on him. That's the whole point here, Adam. Oh, and obviously there was the report of, or not even the report, just Liam Cohen saying, "Oh, we put the ball on the ground today," and then all the fantasy hot takes come out like, "His ADP was too high. Told you so." So this is an offense that I want to bet on. If you look at my quarterback rankings, I have Trevor Lawrence as quarterback 12 when his ADP is quarterback 19 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I have Brian Thomas as like a top 8 overall player. I've got Travis Hunter as a top 25 receiver. and I want to get the back in this backfield, and I think it's going to be Bashal Tutin. I think that Tank Bigsby was the best runner on the team last year. I think that Travis Etienne could absolutely be moved, and I think that when push comes to shove, they're going to want Bashal Tutin to win this job. And I mean, I want to get that lead back on my team. Also, at this point in the draft, I have him number 88 overall. I mean, we're looking at guys like, Ramondre Stevenson, Zach Charbonnet, Najee Harris, clear cut RBBC members, whereas I think that Bashal Tutin has a chance to run away with the Jaguars job. So
Yeah.
I want to take a shot at this area of the draft. I want to take a shot on a guy like Bashal Tutin. So I have no problem being 5 spots ahead of ADP in terms of Bashal Tutin's positional rank.
Yeah, and again, on season long, like let's say you it's different because you take a pick on Bashal Tutin here, and let's say it doesn't work out. ETN stays with the team. ETN and Bigsby smash in the first few weeks. It's not the end of the world. You can just move on. In best ball, though, you've used a lot of draft capital at a spot where it did not hit, and that is way different than places where you can move on, like in season long. All right, the Jaguars backfield is fascinating. Like that's one that I'm gonna have my eye on the closest, or
For
one
sure.
of the
It's
closest.
going to be one of the best camp battles to monitor. It's going to be a fun one.
All right, let's go to wide receivers. First one is Jackson Smith in Jigba. ADP is wide receiver 17. Silva is at wide receiver 12 here on Jackson Smith in Jigba. We know the deal. Sam Darnold's in. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are out. Silva, go ahead on JSN.
Yeah, I mean, that's almost all you need to know. I mean, this guy has a first-round pedigree. He had a breakout sophomore season when we were ahead of market on him. He had 100 catches. I think he's going to be the clear-cut go-to guy for Sam Darnold, and I think that Cooper Kupp is washed. So, yeah, give me all the Jackson Smith and Jigba for the second straight year.
Yeah, and we know Brian Hartline is in on this with us as well here, our close personal friend, Brian Hartline. Yeah, I like JSN. I think there could be some regression as a whole from the offense with Sam Darnold. Like, I'm not convinced that Sam Darnold is actually better than Geno Smith. I think Geno Smith in that Vikings scheme last year would have done the same thing that Sam Darnold did. It's like a schematic thing. So I have a little bit of concern around the Sam Darnold stuff, the offensive line trying to protect him and give him time, which he needs. But if you need to get the ball quickly, JSN is just going to be an absolute target monster. And I like him better in full PPR settings than I would in half. All right. Here's one that's going to open people's eyes, Evan. I mean, this one is...
Let's go.
This one is coming in white hot. Jameson Williams ADP is wide receiver 27. Silva is at wide receiver 14 on Jameson Williams. That's ahead of Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, and a bunch of other very, very, very good wide receivers. Silva, the people are going to be all over you for this one. Why Jameson Williams up here at wide receiver 14 overall?
My question is, why not? Jameson Williams is freaking awesome, okay? He plays in a super bankable offense. Again, the Lions' schedule is really, really tough this year. They may have to play from behind. You want to talk about explosive plays. That's what Jameson Williams makes. We saw him take a really big leap last year. I know that there were some trade rumors around him that bothered me a little bit, but the rhetoric coming from Dan Campbell lately is so strong. Again, with the change in offensive coordinator, I could see the Lions gearing their offense more toward guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, like Jameson Williams, who are clearly explosive playmakers, as opposed to using the rotations that they kind of leaned on under Ben Johnson. So, yeah, I absolutely think that Jameson Williams can flirt with being a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He's going to give you week-winning games. And I mean, why not Jameson Williams? That's what I want to know. Why not?
So it's hard to get enough volume on Jameson Williams for him to hit where you have him. He had 91 targets in 15 games last year. You have to give a lot to Gibbs. You have to give
I am building in, mind you, that I think that the Lions are going to play from behind more this year.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree for sure. I believe they also have fewer dome games this year, which isn't great for Jameson. But if you want to be in on Gibbs, if you want to be in on Montgomery for touchdowns, which I kind of do, if you want to be in on Laporta, which I'm kind of wishy-washy on. It's hard to also get there on volume for Jameson, but obviously the guy can have huge games. I give more of my Jameson take on Market Monday this week. You guys can go back and listen to that for more on JMO. But yeah, that's one where, like, if you want to follow Silva's ranks, you will not have to reach this high to get Jameson Williams. His price point will actually be more palatable. Let's go to the next wide receiver here. This is one that I actually really like. It's hot, but I like it. Jalen Waddle's ADP is wide receiver 32. Silva is at wide receiver 19. And I want to make a point here. Silva actually has Jalen Waddle ahead of Tyreek Hill in his rankings. So go ahead, Silva. This is going to be a tough one for people to swallow, considering how poorly Jalen Waddle's performance or production was for most of last season.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins' offense was quite discombobulated last year. I mean, the wind went out of their sails when Tua got hurt. Tyreek, I mean, I don't even know what to do with Tyreek Hill. I thought he was going to maybe be traded during the draft. That obviously did not happen. He's old. He's in clear decline. I still wouldn't be shocked if he gets moved before week 1. And then it would be, off to the races, I think, for Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was a player that the Dolphins gave a massive, almost fully guaranteed contract last offseason. And yes, he had a disappointing season. It was a disappointing season for the Dolphins as a whole. I just think he still is an explosive playmaker. Wide receiver 19 is like a fringe wide receiver 2. And I mean, I think that if Tua stays healthy, which I know that's not something that ordinarily want to bet on, but I mean, if we can get 14 games out of Tua, I mean, people are going to produce around him. We saw Devin Achane, who I'm super high on him too, by the way.
Me too.
Devin Achane was, he was a needle mover in fantasy whenever Tua was healthy. I think that Jalen Waddle can be that if we get 13, 14 games out of Tua.
Yeah. So people are like, oh, is Jalen Waddle even that good? I don't think that's a question. I think Jalen Waddle is like legit good, and the Dolphins did too. You can tell by that contract. Rookie year for
number
Jalen
6 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, rookie year for Jalen Waddle, 1.75 yards per route run. Okay, whatever. That's good, not great. Second year in the NFL, 2.46 yards per route run for Jalen Waddle. Third year in the NFL, 2.52 yards per route run for Jalen Waddle. And then last year was disaster. Now, there was weird stuff happening last year with Jalen Waddle. They were running like quick hitters to Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane way more than they were to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And that hurt. I hope that my close personal friend, my brother, Mike McDaniel, is going to look at this in the offseason and be like, we need to get the ball quickly out of Tua's hands, more to Waddle and Tyreek and less to Jonnu. And, well, I'd love for him to get to Achane just as much, but less to Jonnu, period, I think would be a huge start. So I don't know if I'm have enough balls like Evan does to actually put Waddle over Tyreek, but I like where his head's at. All right. Next wide receiver is Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's ADP is wide receiver 13. Big fade here for Silva on Garrett Wilson. Silva has Garrett Wilson down at wide receiver 22. Evan, go ahead on this Garrett Wilson fade.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the market is this high on Garrett Wilson. I thought that my ranking was pretty reasonable on him, considering the season that he just had and the transition to what should be one of the run heaviest teams in the NFL, one of the run heaviest offenses in the NFL, with Justin Fields at quarterback. Justin Fields did support a big year from DJ Moore a couple of seasons ago, so you can tell yourself that story. But I just think that they're going to run the ball with extreme volume. They have a defensive-minded head coach who got burnt so often by Justin Fields' legs when Aaron Glenn was the defensive coordinator in Detroit. And I just think that that's how they're going to run their offense. They've got 3 backs that they can use. So I just the volume for the Jets passing offense just isn't going to be there.
Well, not just volume, but efficiency concerns, right? When Justin Fields drops back, I mean, we have efficiency concerns. Now, Evan mentioned that DJ Moore year. DJ Moore ran like hotter than the freaking sun that year. He was taking screen passes for 50-yard touchdowns left and right. I would consider that kind of a freakish outlier thing. So I am with Evan on being a little lukewarm here, considering how high Garrett Wilson is going right now. I do like Justin Fields as a pick, though, just for the record, and we'll get to that with Evan's outliers here in a second.
Yeah, so do I.
All right. More wide receivers. Chris Godwin, ADP is wide receiver 36. Silva is at wide receiver 23. Overall, Godwin's ADP has been sinking a little bit, Evan, in the wake of the Emeka Ibuka pick. Thoughts on being so far ahead of market here on Chris Godwin?
He was playing at such a high level before he got hurt last year. Chris Godwin is like a known hard worker. I think that he's going to make a near full recovery. I know that the Emeka Ibuka draft pick, it should cause a little bit of trepidation, but I think that he's going to be the third receiver, and Jalen McMillan is going to be the 4, and Chris Godwin, again, he was playing such good. I think you could argue that he was playing the best football of his career before he got hurt last season. This is another offense that I want to bet on this year. Baker Mayfield, I listen to a lot of podcasts with other football analysts, and I think that they still don't get how good Baker Mayfield has been a top 10, borderline top 5 quarterback for over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
The Bucs made very few defensive upgrades, and I have them as one of my shootout teams. I think that they are a team that's going to have to score a lot of points. They really didn't address their pass rush. They're banking a lot on some rookie cornerbacks. They have problems at linebacker. I mean, I think that their defense could be downright bad this year, and they're going to have to score a lot of points. And I think that they'll be able to score a lot of points. Chris Godwin will be a very, very big part of that.
Part of this ADP is the ankle. And so reports have been strong. He's expected to be back sometime in September. We don't know that he'll for sure be 100% in week 1, but I want to keep harping on this point. Early season production is the most replaceable production. There's no bye weeks. There's no injuries yet. So even if Chris Godwin was to miss week 1 or week 2, it would not be the end of the world for me. If he does get fully cleared and he looks great at camp, I do think his ADP here will rise pretty sharply. Let's go to DJ Moore.
One other note on Chris Godwin.
Go ahead.
And we've talked about it a little bit, but the Bucs gave him a very large contract.
Yeah, they thought he was healthy. They gave him a huge contract.
With $44 million of his $66 million deal guaranteed.
Yeah.
So that's like almost 70% of his contract is guaranteed.
Yeah.
So they must have very high confidence. That indicates that they have very high confidence in the return of Chris Godwin.
Agreed. Let's go to DJ Moore. DJ Moore's ADP is wide receiver 23. Silva is lower than market on DJ Moore here at wide receiver 29. A lot of different opinions out there about Bears pass catching. And by the way, while we're doing this, we should also do Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland ADP is tight end 9. Silva has a huge fade on Colston Loveland here at tight end 18. So maybe you should talk, Evan, about how you see Bears pass catching going. You are very far off market on both Loveland and DJ Moore.
Yeah, I kind of just don't really know what to do with it. I mean, they added the 39th overall pick and the 10th overall pick as pass catchers. So, I mean, that's a big deal. That is 2 very high draft picks added to this pass catcher core after a season in which DJ Moore did not play well. He showed bad body language on the field. They have a new coaching staff, an entirely new offensive staff in Chicago. And Roma Dunze was the number 9 overall pick in the 2024 draft. And Cole Kmet is back. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not exactly sure where to go. So maybe I'm just going to end up being lower on everybody than market because my level of confidence is low. I thought that I would be coming in hot on Luther Burden. I don't even know if you plan on talking about him, but I thought that I would be hot on Luther Burden. Apparently I'm not hot on Luther Burden. People are on him.
People are very in on Luther Burden. They're taking him very high. Too high for me. It sounds like you agree with them being very high. It's too high for me on Luther Burden, but I want to see how much are they going to play.
I just think that there is a significant possibility that Luther Burden comes out and he's the Bears' number 1 receiver as a rookie.
Yeah, I mean,
DJ Moore did not play well last year. Roma Dunze did not play well last year, and they have a whole new offensive staff who just drafted this dude with a top 40 pick.
Those guys did not play well with Shane Fraudrin. And by the way, I'm praying that we can come up with something for the video team. All the times we said fraudulent, and then these reports come out where Caleb Williams was like watching film and he didn't even know what to look at because fraudulent wasn't even there to help him, and like fraudulent was just like this book or article or whatever it was. You guys have to read this. It just crushes the Bears, crushes Eberflus, crushes fraudulent. And so I'm not going to hold it against Roma Dunze and DJ Moore and Caleb that strongly if we want to just put all the blame on fraudulent. You know what I mean? So and from a prospect level, Roma Dunze was for sure a better prospect than Luther Burden, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, Brad Biggs, who has covered the Bears for, as long as I've been doing this, and he's excellent.
Yep.
And he does radio hits all the time, and he's very, very measured. I mean, he's like a legit, really good reporter. He said that there are questions behind the scenes about Caleb Williams' work ethic and study habits.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure fraudulent has his side of the story, but still.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, Bear stuff is super interesting as well. A couple more wide receivers to get to quickly here. This is one that I like. Xavier Worthy's ADP is wide receiver 21. Silva has a big fade here on Xavier Worthy down at wide receiver 34. We saw Worthy break out big time late last year. That was without Rashee Rice and mostly without Marquise Brown. Those guys are both expected back here for week 1. Evan, thoughts on the Xavier Worthy fade?
Yeah, and I was big on Xavier Worthy entering last season. They used him a lot on clear out stuff to begin the year. Guys start getting hurt, and they wind up using him a lot as a manufactured touch guy down the stretch. And I mean, he was getting 6-7 targets a game. They were putting the ball in his hands as a runner, giving him high percentage stuff, and they're not going to have to do that with Rashee Rice. And I have Rashee Rice pretty high. And I'm building in, no suspension and also full health. So I'm high on Rashee Rice. I'm surprised that the market is this high on Xavier Worthy. I think that that's actually a big mistake by the market, and I think that where I have him is correct.
So
obviously,
yeah, and what concerns me on Worthy is how he's used. Are we sure that he can win deeper down the field? I know he had some misconnections with Mahomes when he seemed like he was open a lot last year. I think it's an open question of how good he is down the field. And on manufactured touches, more of those are going to go to Rashee Rice this year. More of those are going to go to, or at least some of those are going to go to Marquise Brown. So I have some concerns about Xavier Worthy. I wouldn't be as low as Silva is on him, but I would be lower than market a little bit right now for me on
you
Xavier
also
Worthy.
have a big glut of skill position players. I mean, again, I'm building in a healthy return of Isaiah Pacheco.
Yep.
Kelsey did not retire. Noah Gray carved out a very large role last year. They've got those 3 receivers that we just mentioned, Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy. They've got Juju Smith-Schuster back. They drafted a kid, Jalen Royals, who I think is really interesting.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of skill position options. Xavier Worthy was a first-round pick. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be locked into 3 receiver sets. But his volume is a big question mark to me.
Okay. Last wide receiver I want to hit on is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk's ADP is wide receiver 61. Silva is up at wide receiver 48 here on Christian Kirk. They did draft a slot receiver. I believe it was in the 3rd round. That's, I think, what has Christian Kirk's ADP a little bit buried here. Evan, thoughts on being a bit outlier high on Christian Kirk?
I have him looking at where I have him overall. He's like in the 100s.
Yeah,
112.
112, yep.
Okay. I mean, I think that he's going to be the Texans slot receiver. I think that the Texans have a really hard schedule this year. I think that they'll be throwing quite a bit. They've got these twin towers on the outside in Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins. And Christian Kirk, I think, is like the perfect slot receiver to eat up, high percentage targets in the middle of the field. So I don't think that Jalen Noel is going to jump right in and be the slot receiver by any means. I mean, I think that that's going to be Christian Kirk's job.
Yep. I put this in the player by player notes that you guys can find on the site. But my bet is that if Christian Kirk stays healthy, he will hold off Jalen Noel all year.
Yeah, and I mean, and if he's able to do that, I mean, he could catch 90 balls.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to some quarterbacks here. We already teased the Justin Fields one. So Silva lower than market on Garrett Wilson, but higher than market on Justin Fields. His ADP is quarterback 11. Silva is at quarterback 7 here on Justin Fields. We've seen him have these monster fantasy games at times for the Bears. Evan, go ahead on Fields.
I mean, I think that if he plays 17 games, he could run for 1,000 yards. He's done it before. Um, Tyrod Taylor is the Jets' number 2 quarterback. So
Yeah.
Justin Fields, I mean, this is his year. He's getting this year, and I think they're going to run the crap out of him, and he's going to be awesome in fantasy. I actually think that I might be too low on him.
Yeah. I mean,
I thought about putting him quarterback 6. I think I wound up quarterback 7, right?
you ended up with Justin Fields at quarterback 7, and yeah,
Yeah.
ADP is
I
quarterback
thought about
11.
putting him ahead of Mahomes.
So I just think if you actually think he finishes as the quarterback 5 or even quarterback 6, he's probably bringing along Garrett Wilson with him to some degree, right? It won't be all with his legs. In order to finish that high, you do have to have some passing production also. But I hear you, these huge running spike weeks are massily valuable in fantasy.
He's going to bring along Garrett Wilson to be the wide receiver 22, which is exactly where I have him winning.
All right, another quarterback one that I am 100% with you on is Drake May. Drake May ADP is quarterback 16. Silva is way up at quarterback 9 here on Drake May. This is one we talked about in the fallout from the draft, where I thought Drake May maybe had the worst offensive line in the league last year and the worst set of skill players, and still averaged over 16 fantasy points per game. And they've obviously improved that stuff a lot here. So I think a pretty easy one to be ahead of market on Silva. Anything to add here on Drake May?
Yeah, and to the YouTube commenters, like, you know, me portraying extreme confidence right now, it's a sham. I mean, I don't actually have super high confidence right now. I'm just joking, but with Drake May, I do have high confidence in him that he is going to be an absolute stud in the NFL. As a rookie, he averaged almost 33 rushing yards per game in one of the worst situations that you could possibly draw up. And I think that the Patriots, again, I think they're going to take a big step forward this year. I like Drake May as like a long shot 80-1 MVP pick. I'm really excited about Drake May, and I absolutely am willing and obviously have him as a back end quarterback 1. I think that he can have a really, really big second year. I think he can take a big leap.
Agreed. Another one that I'm with you on at quarterback, and this is one that we've been trying to get higher in our ETR rankings, and that is Trevor Lawrence. ADP is quarterback 19. Silva has Trevor Lawrence at quarterback 12 overall. You start to see what they're building, and you start to really be able to build a ceiling case, I think, for Trevor Lawrence, who honestly hasn't shown a big ceiling in fantasy really throughout his career. So go ahead on Trevor Lawrence up here at quarterback 12 for you, Silva.
Well, I believe in Liam Cohen. I believe in Travis Hunter. I believe in Brian Thomas. I think, just big coaching upgrades, big wide receiver upgrade. I think the defense is not going to be very good. And I think that the Jaguars offense is another one that I want to bet on this year. And,
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is obviously the point guard in this offense. He can run, which definitely helps his floor a little bit. But yeah, he's not shown a big ceiling in years prior. I think he can have a big ceiling because of what they have surrounded him with. This is by far the best supporting cast of Trevor Lawrence's career.
They're touchdown scorers, right? Like Brian Thomas Jr. was an outrageous touchdown scorer in college, showed an ability to do that
he
here.
Led the nation in receiving touchdowns his final year at LSU.
And we think that Travis Hunter can be a really good touchdown scorer. And the reason that I mentioned that is because Trevor Lawrence has thrown for over 4,000 yards twice in his career. He just hasn't gotten there on touchdowns. And so much of fantasy scoring at the quarterback position is through touchdowns. He needs to get into that like 30, 35, 38 touchdown range to smash. But with this personnel and Liam Cohen, I actually think he can do it. So again, we're trying to get Trevor Lawrence higher in the ETR ranks as well. All right, let's wrap up here with tight ends. Mark Andrews' ADP is the tight end 8. Silva is up at tight end 5 on Mark Andrews here. Silva, thoughts on Andrews after, one of the most painful endings to a season that a player can have, given the way he played.
Yeah, and one of the
in that playoff
most
game.
painful beginnings to the season too. If you remember how rough his start was.
Yep.
People were saying that he's done. He winds up scoring 11 touchdowns over the Ravens' final 12 regular season games. I like to bet on established rapport between quarterbacks and their pass catchers, and that's Mark Andrews with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be another really big season for the Ravens offense. It's Todd Monken's third year having that system. And in Todd Monken's first year, Lamar Jackson won MVP. And in Todd Monken's second year, Lamar Jackson was second in NFL MVP voting. He's going to bring guys with him. Mark Andrews he's going to score a lot of touchdowns. And if you look at the tight end field,
Yeah.
I do not like the tight end field this year. Beginning right about here at tight end 5. I think I have Sam Laporta tight end 4.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where it starts. It gets real murky.
Yeah.
It almost shoots right to like, hey, let's just bet on guys who we think can score a lot of touchdowns. And I think that Mark Andrews can score double-digit touchdowns.
Yeah. So the one guy that I do think is interesting in that range is Jonnu, because he showed an ability to catch like 8-10 balls in a game last year. But yeah, to be clear, the market is preferring Hawkinson, Jonnu, Kelsey right now over Andrews, and Silva has those guys behind. But yeah, it's going to come down to touchdown scoring in this range as it always does at the tight end position. Let's go to, I couldn't believe this one, Silva. I honestly couldn't believe this one. Kyle Pitts, ADP is tight end 18. Silva's not giving up. Silva is the last remaining person in fantasy.
Whoa.
Even Leone. Even Leone's given up on Kyle Pitts.
I know, and now it's time to pivot.
Even Leone's given up, and Silva's up here at tight end 10 on Kyle Pitts. So, Evan, you are the last man standing here for Kyle Pitts as a tight end 1, as a top 10 tight end this season. Go ahead.
No, I really think it's time to pivot back onto him. Just betting on the offense as a unit, because I think that this is going to be another shootout team, the Falcons. I think that they're going to throw the ball a lot. They're going to score a lot of points because their defense is going to force them to score a lot of points. They play in a division of weak defenses. They they play indoors. I mean, I have Kyle Pitts as tight end 10. I mean, that's not super high. Look at the range of tight ends, that are around him. No, when everyone decides to fade him, I think it's time to pivot back onto him.
My concern is that he's not good enough. Like, just straight up not good enough at NFL football.
I think he's good enough to finish tight end 10.
Yeah.
And they also didn't add anything at tight end, and they didn't add anything at wide receiver either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's going to be out there a lot on a team that's going to score a lot of points. That's essentially what I'm betting on, that he's going to be out there a lot on a team that's going to score a lot of points.
I mean, that was the case last year, and he caught 47 balls for 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's like, I mean, I'm just worried that he cannot win in line. He's not physical enough. And when they put safeties or corners on him, he can't beat them either. So, but yeah. All right.
Yeah. I think they're going to score more points this year than they did last year.
Let's go to last one we're going to talk about here today. Shout out Penn State. Our second Penn State guy, Chris Godwin, was the first. Mike Gesicki, ADP is tight end 21. Silva is up here at tight end 14 on Mike Gesicki. I don't think this is a huge one because, like Evan said, the back end of tight end is like, so murky, and it's just going to be a bet on tight ends. But Evan, go ahead on Mike Gesicki, who you are pretty far ahead of market on at the tight end spot right now.
Yeah, you're just betting on guys that could potentially like have sporadic big games, and Mike Gesicki can do that. He's a pure pass catcher. He's going to lose snaps to Drew Sample. He played 53% of the Bengals' offensive snaps last year. I do think that could go up, and if it does, that's really going to help, because this is another situation where you have a bad defense, you have a great quarterback, you have a team that's going to score a lot of points. Again, I'm betting on the Bengals to lead the NFL in points scored this year. And Mike Gesicki, even as probably the fourth or fifth option, he can give you sporadic big games. And so for what we're at tight end 14.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I think one thing that you get with Jasicki is what we saw last year. When one of T. Higgins or Jamar Chase misses games, they go to Mike Jasicki more than they go to Yoshi Voss. Or I know there's been some positive stuff around Jermaine Burton lately. I'm still skeptical on that. So there's a little bit of contingent upside there on Jasicki as well. All right. There are a ton more discrepancies. I just picked out the ones I thought were most interesting. There are a ton more discrepancies between Silva's top 150 and current market thoughts. Again, if you have DraftKit Pro, you can check out Silva's full top 150 on the site right now. Not expecting a lot of changes to the top 150 for the next, I don't know, month or so. Not a lot's going to happen here. And obviously, this is aimed at season-long players. So Evan will start having his change log and other top 150 updates, updating much more in July and August when people are actually doing their season-long drafts. In the meantime, we'll see you in the best ball streets. For Evan, producer Luke, producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.